Bill Barr gave a marvelous interview to Bill Hammer a couple of weeks ago, and he said something amazing to me. He said, you know, when I became AG, I had started an inquiry. I started asking questions, and I have more questions today than I had before I became Attorney General. And that just blew me away. That, you know, why wasn't Chris Wray over there saying, here's the answers, here's the answers. So I'm going to pose some questions that I have and see if anyone knows that they've been answered. Okay, Joseph Mifsud, is he really a Western agent and not a Russian agent, as we have come to, we are being told that he's a Western agent. But the Mueller report portrays him as a Russian agent. And George Papadopoulos said that when he said he was leaving this institute and going to the Trump campaign, that a woman who worked for the US government said to him, oh my goodness, you have to meet Mifsud, I'll fix it up, you must do it. And yet why did the Mueller report say that George Papadopoulos contacted Mifsud? I mean, talk about misleading. Charles Tawil, T-A-W-I-L, he's also a George Papadopoulos character. He pursued George to a Greek island where he was vacationing with his then fiance, and he begged him to come to Israel. He had a business deal. He had to get work with him. And George goes to Israel, and he goes up to the guy's hotel room, and guess what? There's $10,000 in cash on the bed. George takes it. He protests a little bit, but he says, the guy says, this is how I do business. So George takes it. His wise fiance, now wife, said, leave it here in Greece. George gets on a plane, goes to Dulles, and is immediately surrounded by FBI agents. And, you know, people say that 99% of the FBI agents are good. What happened to these rank and file people who were participating in this? I want to know. My question is, what were they told was the basis for this, stopping this man? And then they didn't have the 10 grand, so they had to make up a crime, and they put him in chains. I mean, my goodness, and they're calling back saying, oh my gosh, we don't have the 10 grand. Mike Flynn, who unmasked him? Who put that article in the Washington Post, because all David Ignatius is a typist for the Democratic Party? Who put that in? And it had to be a lawyer, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because the person told Ignatius to write about the Logan Act. Ignatius wouldn't know about the Logan Act, but he puts it in, and I know journalists enough, you all can verify, if you're going to try to get something out there, you don't put it in the first paragraph. You bury it down so it can just be there as a little seed of destruction. That's what the Logan Act and Mike Flynn all came about. Well, who did that? And how about Andrew Weissman? As head of the fraud section, which I was in charge of the fraud section as Deputy Assistant AG, I supervised the head of the fraud section. Why was he briefed on the dossier? It was out of his portfolio. There was no, he had no clearances.
This is before he was attended.
Thank you, Tom, for making that clear. In August of 2016, he was briefed on the dossier. And then he goes to Mueller, working with the same information that's in the dossier. Why wasn't that a conflict?
Right.
And I have my last question, and here it is. There's only two ways that I know of that the government can get information on U.S. citizens, and that is they go to NSA, which is collected. They've got all kinds of things. They've got a world full of information at NSA, and you go knock on the door and you say, I want to know everything about Carter Page, and then I have a reason to do so. Or you can go to the FISA court and say, I want to have surveillance on Carter Page, and then you get whatever you're producing. So when the good Mike Rogers, I call him, Admiral Rogers, went to the FISA court and found out all the violations that had started since 2012 by the Obama administration. And in April of 2016, he cut off all the FBI contractors' ability to access FISA material. Is it then, Carter, because they couldn't go knock on the door, as they had been doing, getting the information? Is it then that they started to focus on you and George for FISA warrants? And is that why it turned to in the other direction?
Well, just to provide some context here, you know, Carter was a cooperator with the government. You were helping the FBI go after the Russians. Of course, this doesn't come across in the Mueller. In fact, the fact they leave it out shows you the dishonesty of the Mueller report.
Sin by omission.
And the FISA issue that you raise, the FBI contractors, explain what the issue is behind there, where you had, I guess, people who weren't read in reviewing
Contractors were not supposed to have access to
reviewing
702 U.S. person
reviewing
information.
spy material on Americans, right?
Yeah. And why are they still anonymous? Why don't we know who those contractors are?